the Hack Your Health event coming up in Tampa this November 14th through 16th. I'm excited that I've been invited to be a part of this once again. Get your tickets early and a lot less expensive. And not only that, you get $100 off when you use my discount code Dante. You can meet some of your favorite carnivore stars. I hope to see you there. All right, well, welcome to Ferrigno Freedom channel. I'm Dante Ferrigno, and as you know, if you've been here before, I've been on a carnivore diet known as the Lion Diet now for a little over 4 years, and it has just changed everything. And for those of you who are new to the channel, this is my wife, Katie. She is joining us for one of the first times for a reaction video today, because ever since Dr. Kiltz's event down in Tampa, she has just been fired up about what carnivore diet means and what the whole community is all about. So she's wanting to participate more, and I'm glad to have you here.
Yep.
All right, so we're going to check out a video today called What They Don't Want You to Know About the Food Industry. And this is a Jordan B. Peterson video where he's talking about the food industry, obviously. I haven't watched the video. I just wanted to check it out because, you know, many of you may know that Dr. Jordan Peterson is the reason that I found the Lion Diet, because he was telling the story of why he was on an all-beef diet at the time. And his daughter was on the Lion Diet because of healing for her body, that she had had juvenile rheumatoid arthritis and how it had healed all these problems for her in addition to her rheumatoid arthritis. I thought, well, this is the solution for me. So I gave it a try a few years ago, and it's just been gangbusters ever since as far as my health goes. Anyway, it was Jordan Peterson that started this whole path, and we want to check it out today. So without any further ado, unless you have anything you want to add.
So I'm good.
Okay.
Things you could do that would have a major effect, and then 100 things you could do that would have a relatively trivial effect. And you don't want to get lost in the weeds, because you probably got the opportunity to maybe do 2 things if you're lucky.
Yeah.
And so you better pick those carefully, because how many fights can you have?
Right.
And so if you were, and I imagine you will, if you were talking to Bhattacharya, that's on the research side, if you were talking to Mehmet Oz, if you were talking to RFK, what do you want to see? And how would you justify that?
Yeah, you know, I think the first thing, so if this is my wish list, and this is very aspirational, I don't know if this is possible, but this is my wish list. I would really like to see pharmaceutical advertisements off TV.
Yes, well, I think RFK has threatened that. Yeah, well, that seems, there'll be a fight about that, because my suspicions are that
a little fight.
Well, that's the end of the legacy media, right?
Yeah,
because
it is. It's the
from
end.
what I understand, 70% of legacy media news is pharmaceutical ad supported.
That's right.
70%'s a lot, and I think it's something around 40 to 50% across the board.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
wow, I didn't even think about that. I mean, I thought about that. I thought about how every time you watch legacy media, you see nothing but pharmaceutical ads, but I didn't think about how that would affect their bottom line until just now. I don't know why, but yeah, that would be the end of it, because what else have they got?
Yeah, their shows aren't very good.
Yeah, that's why I don't know, because I don't watch them anymore. I don't think about how the fact that it's constantly pharmaceutical ads, because I haven't watched any of that in so long.
Might be a good thing, though.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. I'm sure it is. I live in reality as opposed to their painted reality.
Now that the legacy media serves an older population, and so they're going to be more susceptible to pharmaceutical advertising. And there's going to be a war, because if that's taken away, all those companies are going to die. Now, you know, there's a part of me that thinks, oh, that's really too bad that all those terribly corrupt companies are going to die.
Right.
They richly deserve it, but there's still going to be a war.
Yeah.
And RFK has threatened to do that already, or promised to do it. And maybe he will do it. I mean, it was only allowed, when did it start? 25 years ago?
Yeah.
That you could do direct-to-consumer advertising?
Right, and we're the only country in New Zealand, I think we have there's 2 countries that allowed it. So, yeah, so this is something that we should look at. And I think it would...
that combined with lack of liability on the part of the pharmaceutical manufacturers. That's a really bad combination.
Yes, yes. That act in 1986, I think, should be repealed for sure. I mean, that also should happen. We need to take our farm subsidies and re-engineer those to regenerative farms, regenerative agriculture that can move away from a GMO intensive agriculture and have more biodiversity so that we can have different kinds of crops so that our processed foods aren't inundated with just corn, soy, and canola and sugar beets, right? So we need to have a more diverse farm situation, and we have the technology to do it.
Do you
it just
know
needs
how
funding.
much the subsidies are contributing to that? Like
It's in the trillions of dollars. Yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah. See, I mean, you can see the complexity of things emerge here because, okay, regenerative farms, like, it sounds like a great idea as far as I'm concerned. And my shallow knowledge of the topic indicates that properly managed farms can produce beef, for example, that's healthy and with the cows having, not such a bad life. Animals like cows, ruminant animals, tend to die a pretty dismal death in nature. And so, human beings can make it so that their lives are better, really, than they would be in the wild. Regenerative agriculture sounds like a fine thing. It's more expensive, depending on how you calculate expense. But I have no idea to what degree government subsidies are warping the market in a manner that makes it the case that everything we eat is full of corn syrup, for example.
Right.
A lot. But I don't, like it would take me a year to figure that out, right? Just that problem. Just that problem. Right. And then to dare to intervene in a manner that wouldn't make it worse.
And I'm not sure the Secretary of Agriculture, I don't know her stance on this. And so she's going to have a pivotal role in this as well. So that's going to be an unknown. So we'll have to look at that.
Sugar tax. What do you think of that? I mean,
before he jumps into the sugar tax,
Go ahead.
do you have any thoughts on that one?
Just the initial, I think some battles are worth having. Just because we're in this position now where we are doesn't mean we should just continue to let it be this position of food manufacturing in the processed way, which is what we're dealing with now, and with the pharmaceuticals. So it's like these battles are worth having if we respect human life and we respect our children's lives and futures and our grandchildren. This is a battle worth fighting. Even
if we respect the animals' lives too, because
Absolutely.
You remember when we went to Big Mo Cattle and we saw his farm and the way those animals were, how happy they were. I mean, it was like you could see the difference and you could smell the difference even on the farm. It didn't stink. Remember, it was like it had a earthy sense to it. He talked about how the cattle, they had those stretch marks on their skin because they were fat. And that made them happy because they were eating the tall grass all the time because they were moving from paddock to paddock, and how they were able to keep all these different weeds and types of grass that cows are good at eating. And the cows don't have to eat the grass all the way down to the ground. They're actually able to grab it with their tongue and pull the grass out and then chew it like they're supposed to. And they get all the carbohydrates and they get the fat that they're supposed to get from it. Whereas if they're just eating grass, it's all the way down to the ground, they're not getting any carbohydrates. And that's why so much of your grass-fed beef.
And it was the bacteria close to the ground where the animals use as the bathroom. So they were actually getting harmful bacteria from eating constantly from the same ground that they've gone to the bathroom on. So having the tall grass, it elevated, they get the top. That had the carbohydrates and they didn't eat from the bottom. Right.
And then they wouldn't come back to that same paddock for at least 45 days, if not longer, because they would move them every 12 to 24 hours. But 45 days at minimum before they come back to that same paddock again. And that way that grass gets to grow back up again. And also then the pigs and the chickens come through and do all their scratching and rooting and doing all that and spreading it around and making it all regenerative. And it takes time. That's what he's talking about when he was saying how you estimate cost.
That's the regenerative part.
Because it takes effort to do that. you could do it a lot easier the way they do it now, where they use a lot of corn to feed the animals and make them fat quickly, and it makes them metabolically unhealthy, but it makes the animal fat quickly, and then they can send it to slaughter when it's younger.
Yes.
But regenerative is going to be a older cow for the reason that you're going to let it get as big as it can.
Right.
And also it's going to be a happier cow. So, I mean, and I think it's going to be healthier because you got grass fed in a way where it's getting the fat that it needs, and it's getting the omega-6, omega-3 ratio that you want in your meat too. So that's where the regenerative farming, I think, is so valuable, especially for carnivores.
And it's possible.
It's
not
is.
that these things are not possible. These are very possible things that we can do, and healthier for our environment and healthier for our bodies.
Yeah.
So what's the problem?
Well, I think the problem is that you can do it cheaper if you do it the easy way, but the easy way costs you healthy food. You don't get as healthy of a food that way. You get something that does the job, but you could have something that's not only better food, but you also get a better result with the land. You get a better long-term yield. I think actually it would be better, long-term.
Is it more cost effective though if we're giving millions and billions of dollars out in subsidies?
Right.
To
That
make this
definitely
cheap and
doesn't.
efficient, or a cheap and quick process? Is it more cost efficient?
That just creates a market for something that there isn't really a market for.
Right,
That's
why
why.
I see it.
Yeah. Okay.
Like, I have no idea, right? It's so complicated.
Yeah,
but sugar's dirt cheap, and that strikes me as a problem.
Yeah.
Now, God only knows what would happen if you made sugar expensive, because my suspicions are the corporations would just find chemicals that mimic sugar, although that's hard.
Here's my idea of sugar. Like, if you were to take a bowl of sugar, okay, and then you compare that to some Oreos, and you put a child in front of it. What are they gonna eat more of?
Right.
They're not gonna eat more of this just plain sugar.
No.
Because the Oreos have been engineered from a flavoring standpoint to be delicious.
See, I don't understand.
And more addictive.
I've always hated Oreos.
Oh, well,
I know.
I picked a bad.
But I get.
I'm not an Oreo fan either.
No, but it's still the case that you're right. The sugar,
so they're not
wouldn't eat the sugar.
They wouldn't eat the sugar, right? So when it comes to a sugar tax, I don't know if that's solving the problem. I still think that we have to look at the engineering of food and how it's taking over our taste buds and our brains and made to be addictive, and figuring out how the food companies can still make their food delicious and tasty, but not addictive, right? We've got to unlock that somehow. And I think
right again there. That's a terribly complicated problem.
Yeah, but I don't know if the government's going to be able to solve that. I think maybe these outside lawsuits will solve it faster. And so I think that
it's not even.
It's kind of like the tobacco.
Government should solve this, because first of all, it's not obvious that the government solves things. Like, lots of people in government try to solve things, but they often make things worse.
Right.
And so another problem that you have to.
Did you want to?
No, I absolutely agree with that statement.
Yeah.
We're from the government. We're here to help.
Right. Yeah. It's exactly. Whenever you hear that, it's like, please don't help. Please.
They create a problem by trying to solve a problem, but their answer to the problem is what usually adds compounds. And then we have what we have now. And I think the part where she's emphasizing on the chemical manufacturing of foods to make them more, I think this is the problem when it comes to our taste buds have changed, drastically changed. And how are these chemicals affecting us? To our core, the way we think, the way we act, the way we make decisions. What are these chemicals doing to us long term? And I kind of hope that's where the MAHA movement and RFK are going when they talk about researching these issues. And it sounds like they're trying to push for preventive care, which I am absolutely for. And I think if you put a group of mothers, say 50 of them, together and you say, this is healthier for your kid and this one has a bunch of chemicals, I think they're going to go with the one that might be $1 or $2 more for the healthier thing. But the problem is we have boxes that say healthy, low carb, sugar free, but they're full of chemicals.
Yeah.
So I think it's a perceptual battle too.
Yeah, well, I've talked about that, how important it is that we got to be able to say, if you're going to lie and say this is healthy when it's not, you should be responsible for that, as if it was a contract that you said this was healthy. I said, okay, if it's healthy, I'm going to buy it and eat it, and I eat it and I get sick from it, or I get fat, or I get whatever chronic disease comes from it.
Yeah. What's your definition of healthy?
Right. It's you got to be able to take some kind of action against that. My initial, when they said sugar tax, is like, no taxes to punish a product or something like that, because it depends on who's in charge then. And if whoever's in charge decides the thing that you find to actually be healthy, like say, for instance, meat is considered bad by somebody. Do we know anybody who might think that meat is a bad thing? And then if they get in charge, they decide they want to make meat have a tax. So I don't think that should be the course that we go, because it sets a bad precedent, and we don't want to set that as the precedent for how we deal with this type of problem. But the way she's talking about is dealing with the legality of saying that it's healthy when it's not actually healthy.
Yes.
Solve is, how do you specify the proper level of responsibility? We talked about that a little bit on the YouTube side. You wrote cookbooks, right? Because it could be that a huge part of the solution might be communication to the public about what should be eaten, right, to mothers directly, rather than going after the food companies.
Yeah.
I mean, I
think about, Michelle Obama's Let's Move campaign. Well, she was co-opted by the food industry. She wanted to go after the food industry first in the sugar in the food, but they said, no, let's make it about moving more, because they wanted to take the emphasis off of them.
Yeah.
And
you have
so
a lot to wear off all that sugar.
You do.
Yes,
you do.
a lot.
And so wouldn't it be nice to have some kind of campaign in the government that would get the truth out about real food and about eliminating processed foods, and having the truth about ultra-processed foods be talked about in a way that would inspire America to say, you know what, I'm going to eat less packaged food. I'm going to eat more real food. That's kind of what we need at that national level. And I think the government would be really great to do that, because they can get the right people involved. I mean, they would just need someone like a Jamie Oliver or Michael. Now, Michael Pollan, let's talk about Michael Pollan. This is Twilight Zone material where I can't even believe what happened. Michael Pollan posted on X,
tell everybody who Michael Pollan is.
So Michael Pollan is, I would say, the father of the food movement, the father of he wrote the book Omnivore's Dilemma that kind of laid out the industrial farming system, what's wrong with it, what's wrong with our food system, how to undo it. He wrote several other books in defense of food and other books to really get the public to think about food in a different way. And I would say,
Had you heard of him?
No.
I haven't either.
But it's interesting.
Yeah, it is.
I'm glad there's people out there, behind this. I don't know about the government.
And she's saying he's like the godfather of it. And this is what we talk about all the time, is exactly what she's saying, that she wishes the government would talk about, is what we talk about here, and what Dr. Ken Berry and Sean Baker and Anthony Chafee and Bella and so many others are talking about all the time. Robert Kiltz, the Carrie Mann. I mean, we're all on that same thing that they're talking about right there. If all these pharmaceutical companies weren't propping up the media, then who do you think everybody would be watching but the people who are popular in these other spaces? Now, I'm not saying that necessarily my channel, but people like Ken Berry, who has 4 million followers, he's got a presence out there, and that would be something that should be broadcast nationwide, as opposed to something where they're just basically captured by the pharmaceutical companies and feeding you their information. And that's pretty much what you're getting from legacy media right now, is you're getting fed by the pharmaceutical companies what they want you to know.
Just being able to have an honest discussion about it openly, let's say on TV, let's say on the news. You have two people with two different sides, and they can communicate about it openly without a bunch of, backlash or negativity. It's just because, people are going to do that anyways. But just being able to have debates about this, communication about it, just be able to talk about it. Like, let me viewpoint, let's talk about it openly, but you don't get that.
Yeah.
Is the problem. We don't get a objective view from both sides so that we can think independently on our own. So real quick, her outfit is giving me 1990s Janet Jackson vibes.
All right.
Just gotta throw that out there. I can't unsee it.
Hero of mine at one point, because he really taught me different things that I could go in and research even further and figure out what was going on. So when he came out and posted an X article that was in favor of RFK Jr., everybody was so excited. They're like, yes, Michael Pollan's on board. This is amazing. RFK retweeted it, said, thank you so much, Michael Pollan. You know, I'd love to have a conversation with you. Well, immediately Politico interviews Michael Pollan, and Michael Pollan is like, you know what? I don't want anything to do with RFK Jr. I don't believe in his vaccine stances. I don't believe in helping him. He is dangerous for the public. I hope he doesn't call me, basically, is what he said. I hope he doesn't call me. And I go, so here's where I have a fundamental problem with people who have been working and devoted their life's work to changing the food system. And now you have somebody like RFK Jr. who gets it.
Well, he's scary. RFK is scary. So it's not surprising that that's happened. Like, what I find is surprising is that RFK is really even in the game at all. Because he is.
Yeah.
And that's amazing. It's unbelievable that that's happened.
Yeah.
But
it's the ultimate redemption, honestly.
Yeah, but it doesn't surprise me that people find him scary, because first of all, he is a pattern recognizer. You know, and the thing about pattern recognizers is that they can easily devolve into conspiratorial thinkers. And drawing the line between those two is very, very hard, especially when you're talking about the malfeasance of extremely large organizations. You know, and so many of the things that were touted as conspiratorial over the last 10 years have turned out to be true, but it's still terrifying. And RFK is definitely a figure on the edge like that, right? And so the problem with RFK for people is that, you know, you said, for example, that when you were a kid, and this was also the case for your family, you had kind of a blanket trust in, let's say, the system. Now, I remember when I was a kid sitting downstairs in my basement in northern Alberta watching Walt Disney was, if I remember correctly, it was supported by Kraft. And at that time, Kraft had these advertisements that had this avuncular man, you know, these happy families preparing their Kraft food, and this avuncular voice that was very warm and inviting, and it was all like, welcome to the banquet, right? And someone like RFK comes along and says, pretty much everything you think is wrong. Well, it's a lot easier to think, no, we just won't listen to you.
Yeah.
Right. And most of the time that's the correct response, right? But then we have the problem that, as you pointed out, 40% of kids between 13 and 18 are pre-diabetic.
12 and 18, yeah.
It's like, okay, something's gone completely sideways here.
So how dead on is that?
I think about this a lot when you and I discuss these things, and when I discuss it with friends. I think about this a lot. Talking to somebody isn't as easy as I want to talk to you about your diet, my diet, how we eat. You have to go through layers of people's belief systems and their thought process, like what has made them who they are, why they believe what they believe, and what they believe to be fact. This is fact. Oh no, this, like he said, when we were kids, you know, Kraft mac and cheese. That's the first thing I thought of was the packaging of those boxes of Kraft mac and cheese. When you got the powder, and then you made the noodles and the milk, and you mixed it all up when you were a kid, you know, just to make it real quick. You don't want to believe that what you've been told through commercials, through TV, through your youth, that's not healthy for you. That your mom was doing something she didn't know. You know, I grew up in the 80s and the 90s. Like, they did their best, but it's bad and it's wrong. And we don't want to believe those things because it breaks our worldview. It shatters it. I mean, I've had that happen to me 3 times in my life, where just things that I had been taught as a child that I thought were good, I thought would make me a productive woman in life, were absolutely horrendously wrong and devastating to my life, my way of thinking, and how I perceive the world. But and it's really hard. It takes a lot of grace and compassion and love for someone to talk to them, because you can't be, lead foot about it to somebody and hardcore, because some people just don't want to hear it, and they're going to their self-deception is something very hard to get through when you talk to people.
Yeah.
And so Jordan Peterson talking about that, I can relate to that, because I've had that, and food is definitely one of those issues I've had to deal with.
I thought you were talking about how RFK kind of goes against everything, and that's what makes it so hard. It's like, really? But we kind of are already there.
We've been there.
We've been there for a while now.
Yes.
So when we hear what RFK had to say, it's like, yes,
Mm-hmm.
somebody is finally saying exactly what we've been saying now for years, is you've got to get this poison out of the food. And
well, even before that, before the food issue,
right.
I don't know if we talk about
Talking
it.
about before Carnivore?
Before Carnivore, there were
Right.
several issues that you and I stood against that were waves of popularity and waves of excitement in all forum the government was moving towards. And we were screaming, stop, wait,
Yeah.
don't.
Yeah,
And
well, that had to do with healthcare, a lot of that, because we were watching what was going on with healthcare,
Yes.
and we realized it had nothing to do with helping people get healthy.
Yes, exactly.
It just had everything to do with more power and control over people's lives.
And
that's ultimately what it came down to.
Right. And the pollen gentleman that she's talking about, we don't know, and maybe this is why. And I don't know what happened in the story, why all of a sudden Politico came to him and they talked to him. So was it did someone come to him, is what makes me think someone came to him and said, look, if you side with RFK, we're going to make your life hell.
That's exactly what's going on.
But if you go against him, we'll make sure that you're protected and that you have some funding for whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
But you can't go. So it makes me think that.
Well, that is exactly what it is. I mean, there's no doubt about it.
But I don't know, because we don't know him.
Well, no, you see, because
So we
he
don't know
wrote
the
the book
story.
about Fauci, and Fauci, based on what we know about Fauci, we know, and based on what he said,
Who
he
wrote
said,
it?
RFK Jr.
Right,
It's
just
the
a
book
giant
called the Real Anthony Fauci, and
Right.
it exposes him and Bill Gates, and these are two people who are not going to be exposed for those things without fighting back. I mean, that's ultimately what it comes down to. They've got a lot of power, and they're going to use that power to destroy him.
And we know Politico's not, independent.
exactly.
As independent media goes. So that kind of gave me a red flag too.
So anyway, what's your overall assessment of where we're going with the Maha movement, and also what he was talking about here and how they work together? Because what they don't want you to know about the food industry is ultimately what Make America Healthy Again is all about.
Yeah. Well, I think this video must be for those people who are just now breaking into this.
Yeah.
And it's good. I'm glad to see it.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's going mainstream.
yeah.
This is our mainstream. I mean, watching Jordan Peterson is our mainstream. So and I know a lot of people that may be the same situation, or maybe Russell Brand or whoever.
Anyone who's watching
Joe
this
Rogan.
channel.
Joe Rogan is mainstream. So I mean, that's the new mainstream in my opinion, because that's what we watch. That's what who we know. That's who they watch too. So yeah, it's awesome.
Mm-hmm. It is.
Well, anyway, I guess that's all we got to say about this particular one. I hope, Katie, and you hope you enjoyed your first time doing a reaction with me and sharing some. Yeah, well, I know you got some insights, and I think you're going to be a very big part of this, and that's exciting. I hope y'all are excited to have Katie here, and I appreciate you guys coming and joining us today. Be sure to stick around for a word from one of my sponsors, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.
Well, what have you done for me lately? What have you done for me lately?
If we pay extra, could we maybe get some grease or fat?
The Carnivore bar compared to movie theater snack prices, it's no competition. With a tub of popcorn running you over $14, I'd much rather enjoy the salty, crunchy, meaty goodness of a Carnivore bar any day, and I don't have to cheat to enjoy my night out. Carnivore bar. Save 10 to 20% when you use my link in the description of this video.